Good morning to the artists. Come on in.
You know, my belief, and I think the staff shares this belief, that this is where the foundation is established. I believe all children are different. That you know, as they get older, the peer group influence on them, they're going to all look the same. Or they're also all going to be wearing the same kind of t-shirt that everybody else wears. So individuality can be lost along the way. But at this age level, when children are so different and so unique and so individual, why would we want to stamp that out, you know, now? So I think it's really important to recognize that they are individuals and they are different. And so I think as a school, when you offer educational programs to children, it's incumbent upon you to also offer some variety within the context of the entire curriculum. I think if you don't have choice at all, then that's a problem too. Because we're not making robots here, you know, we're not pounding all those little round pegs and square holes.
Well, the first thing that I say to them when they come in is that artists are people who make things and build things about what's on their mind, about things they're really interested in. And that I assume that they have a lot of stuff they'd like to do visually.
In other words,
and that I'm here to help them do that.
That doesn't work very well.
The job of the artist is to have an idea and then find the material to express it, or to find a material which leads them to an idea. And if the teacher does both of that, the teacher has taken on the role of the artist, and the students are just duplicating the teacher's aesthetic experience. And I just don't have any interest in doing that. All of us as teachers use our own education, either that it was good or it was bad, and mine had a lot of negatives to it. I thought that you just were a painter, you either were or you weren't, and I was just stupid. So I didn't get much instruction. I didn't really have anyone who gave me the impression that one of my ideas might be worthy of doing art. So I would sort of do things because somebody else told me to do them. So that when I came into teaching, I didn't really have a very high opinion of my own work, and so I was really fascinated by the children's work. So I wasn't trying to impose my kind of art on them, because I thought my kind of art was sort of trivial and of no consequence. But I was quite taken by the power of the work that came from the children. So people write these big phone books full of curriculum, and I always say, my curriculum is 2 sentences. What is it that artists do? And the student is the artist. The room is divided into areas, and in each area, students can find, for instance, everything they would need to make a painting. And so that's called the painting center. Other people call them stations. And we have a painting center area, printmaking, puppet making, mask making, book making, fiber arts, sculpture, collage, drawing, and digital art, as well as architecture. And one center is introduced each week. So by the 9th week, the students have had one experience demonstrated in each of the centers. But each week they can choose between what is new and anything that has gone before. I will be at the red table today if anyone is interested in this. Otherwise, all the centers are open. Your box is over there. Let's do art.
I'm out of red. You're going home.
Yes, there's some right over there.
You got the book. Well, I thought that was pretty cool, because you could do whatever you wanted to, and you could express yourself more rather than just doing what everybody else was doing.
Instead of saying, do this, or draw this, or make this, she doesn't enjoy that. She loves to be able to create her own projects.
There were children drawing things, you know, about their cat that died, or their grandfather that died, or all these different things, and it would start a conversation with the other children, and with an adult, that things would come up and get discussed, and you know, it was just such a perfect, relaxed atmosphere that allowed that, you know, to happen.
My aunt's birthday today.
Yes.
She died.
Yeah, she died, so this is a memorial?
Yeah.
probably forget to do it. So I'll leave them outside in the hallway and you can pick them up.
If they're thinking about, and if somebody is applauding the things that are really important to them, then they continue to be creative. I think creativity stops when somebody says, that's not important, that's trivial, that's stupid. And then you shut right down.
So one of the things that I do in teaching is that, and Kathy talks about as something that I taught her, is finding a real reason to learn, that need to know. How do I tweak them? How do I tickle them so that they get to the point where they have to know it? My children at home, laugh and they say, Mom, how can they possibly want to stay in for recess and keep doing work? How come at the end of the day they say, do we have to leave? And I think the difference is that you find out what each child needs.
Often the children will do work and they're not giving me any problem, but I know they're just pleasing me, that it hasn't really kicked in for them, and they're still coming up to me saying, is this good? And I don't like to hear that, And so I sort of wait to see till they're really driven to do something, and I have to, drag them screaming from the room. And it usually happens eventually. I love the way you've got that rotating, though. That's wonderful. That's nicely designed.
He has a real difficulty focusing on things and staying with the task that he's supposed to be doing. But that was never the case in the art room. He would come in, he'd say, I'm planning on painting today. He'd sit and listen to whatever Kathy had to say that day, Mrs. Douglas had to say that day about the lesson, and then he'd go right to work. And he created a huge volume of work, of paintings, and they all had a theme, and they were very abstract. And he developed a tremendous confidence about his work to the point where, and he wasn't a confident child about other things, but he just felt so good about himself with his artwork, and it was wonderful for me to see that because we were having such a struggle in other areas.
Oh, it's such a subtle thing. How do you help someone to keep moving while letting them choose the pace? And it's really subtle. And I sometimes do it badly still as a teacher.
And it's very important, I think, at this level to make sure everybody feels successful.
There's nothing negative going on in there. It's all positive. It's all a build-up of all of the children, and that's just so important. And that's actually another thing that he said when I asked him this morning about, what he remembered about Mrs. Douglas, is that she encouraged him very much to do what he felt was good for him.
Nice. Thanks for the compliment, Mom.
She would always encourage you and tell you that your painting was really good and compliment you on your colors or something like that.
What did you learn from that?
I learned that that you can do anything you want to.
She's not afraid to try new things, and she's not afraid to go with what she thinks is going to be great, and she's proud of it at the end. Instead of saying these colors go together, she knows that she can try whatever she wants, and she loves the product she comes out with.
It's the nature of the human to be exploring, to be looking at things from all directions, to be playing with things, to be pushing.
Back in '93 or so, we were named Firm of the Year by the National AIA, and so I gave a little talk on the history of the firm and how we got that way. And unfortunately, maybe for my reception when I got back here and the partners read the articles, I compared it to kindergarten. That there was an essence of kindergarten here was what attracted me in the first place, and I liked the fact that it was still here. People were a little upset that I compared our office to kindergarten, but there is that part of the environment. We think it's essential in this office.
When you watch a child struggle to walk, it's an enormous undertaking, and there's this joy in accomplishment that is just fabulous. And so you start out with that, and then you get up to 9th grade, and everybody's sitting in these chairs like they're in a coma, and so I think educators are always saying, what happens to this drive to learn, which is innate in human beings, to the point where people are sort of avoiding doing the bare minimum just to get through. If schools were in charge of teaching children to walk, we would have walking disabled children, we would have ed plans for children who needed to walk, because we would take all the skills and we'd separate them all out, and you'd have to do it in a certain order, and this is how we do everything in school. And my attitude is just get people messing around with things, notice what they're having trouble with, help them with that, and then get out of the way. But that's how human beings learn. And they learn by fiddling around, and they learn by absolutely being ready to fail with it's not a problem. You fail and you get up and you try it again.
Having the time to fail and make a mess and not get the color you want, but then being able to start over again and get what you really want. Taught him a little bit about persistence, about having an idea and following through with it.
One of the hardest things, again, I think because of being in school, is this is wrong, there's an X, I'm finished. And to see things that aren't going well as part of the process, and to not just walk away from that, because sometimes that's almost encouraged by the big red X. Saying, oh, okay, so this happened, I wonder why this happened, and I'll try to, because sometimes they're afraid still, I messed up, throw it away. And if I can convince them, well, let's look at it, because maybe there's a reason why it happened. How much water did you put on your paper first? And to help them, by questioning them, decide how they might do it differently. I think most children have a lot of energy, and they aren't lazy, but sometimes they're just afraid. And so if they learn to talk themselves through their mistakes, then they will continue and persevere.
Both of my kids are perfectionists, and I think the way they've handled the art classes, it's shown them that even if they make a mistake, they can turn it into something good.
If I'm writing and I make a mistake, and then I was thinking about something that I was going to do, and then I made a mistake, so I turned it into something different.
She doesn't look at it as a mistake anymore, and she doesn't think she has to throw it away and start over. She works it in her mind and says, well, that I can turn into something else. I can put a flower over that, or I can create something different out of the mistake. And she's always happy with it. So instead of saying, oh, I messed up, and throw it away and then be done with it, she turns it around and creates something new, and then she's happy with her end product.
In art, with all the open centers, and you could pick and choose, and do what you wanted to, I think that kind of helped me express myself in writing a little bit more.
It just opens their minds up to so many different ways of creating something, and I think it does follow through in our writing, especially our writing.
I think you have to recognize that the individual can be far more sophisticated mentally than what they display to you. And I think a lot of that is seen in the art room, where we have children who are average students, whatever that is, but somebody describes them as that, and you see this wonderful, wonderful, sophisticated artwork they've done. You say, how do you do that? Because he's got more in here than we're able to recognize. And I think as you keep stressing to the teachers, don't sell the kids short. We don't really know what they can do.
On a collaborative team approach to anything, everybody doesn't have the same skills anyway. And I hope nowadays schools don't treat people like they all have to have the same core set of skills, that there are people who have very different skills, and if you recognize what you contribute and what you don't, and that together you work better, it won't matter as much. I suspect a lot of architects were probably not good students. The stereotype that other people think they have to be good at science and math and things like that, they probably were handicapped at some point in time by being visual thinkers in a school system that celebrates linear or rational thinking, and found some retreat in doing things with their hands and making things, and maybe they found somebody who really sort of relished their ability to be visual thinkers.
Some of the children who are really struggling with the academics and MCAS sorts of things do extraordinary work in 3 dimensions, and I think it's just a whole other way of thinking. To me, one of the most ridiculous things is that a middle-aged person like myself can have better ideas than a 7-year-old, because, you know, I just am astonished by what they do. Their ideas are fabulous, and they have so many skills that I don't have. And because I was allowing myself to just sit back and watch, I have seen so much wonderful stuff that they do, that now I have the faith to say, I know this looks really strange, but it's going somewhere. I think a lot of art education may be the sort of shortcut, as you have this sort of fail-proof experience where all the missteps have already been avoided, and so you have these very narrow parameters for making this thing that won't have anything wrong with it and can go home. And I don't think that they can learn that way. The first grade found object sculptures really take a leap of faith on the part of me and the parents, because it's like an egg carton with some tape flying off and things dangling down, and they usually fall apart on the bus, and I'm thinking, oh, the parents must think I'm crazy. But if they can get through that and keep doing it, and get through that scribble stage, you know, then you have the 3rd graders with, again, a 2nd grader today figured out axles using pipe cleaners and straws, and I'm like, whoa, pretty nice. If the scribble stage and the learning process, which is very individual and everybody goes through it at a different speed, but they all go through it, if that's interfered with, I think then people are either delayed or they stop making the art.
My son came through here with Mrs. Douglas from 1st to 3rd grade, and he absolutely loved art while he was here. And now that he's at his other school, he doesn't have the same confidence he had as he did here. As he's doing a project, he'll say, it's not coming out good, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing, and then he'll come home and he'll have an A+ on his project, but he hasn't enjoyed it because it's not what he's interested in. When he was here, he learned the basics, he had the knowledge, and that way of learning is wonderful, but then he had the choice to express himself in his way, in the way he wanted to, and he was much happier with his work. They both loved the way they learned here. They both loved to be able to go to the art room and express themselves in their own way and learn the new things, but really come out with their own projects that they were so proud of.
What Kathy does that's so strong is that she gets kids to understand that it doesn't matter if someone else likes it. That's not the reason, that's not the point. Getting someone else to like your work is the frosting or the gravy. It's a bonus, but it's not why you're doing this. And when I hear a person say to me, so-and-so didn't like my work, but you know, I love it, then I know we're getting somewhere. There are so many misperceptions as to how artists function, and it's unfortunate, but there's a tendency in our society to feel that artists wave a magic wand and artists produce. And what that does is inhibit the rest of us from art-making experiences, because we feel as though if we can't magically produce wonderful art, then we obviously don't have whatever it is that is needed in order to be an artist.
I remember when I was a kid, you know, I had to draw the boat, and if I didn't draw the boat perfect, you know, you failed, you know, and then you think that you don't have any abilities or skills.
Looking back on my own childhood, I wish I don't even remember my art classes. I never thought I was artistic at all, because if the teacher put something up in front of me and said, draw this, I couldn't do it. But as I've gotten older, I've found my own ways of being creative. And if I had had that as a child, I would have been much happier or much more confident in myself.
By expanding the word art to artistic and demonstrating the vast domain that that includes, already everybody in the classroom feels that they belong there. Of all of the things that you do in your life, and you do 10,000 things, think of that thing that you do in which your mojo rises up and you're just okay. And so therefore they are drawing upon an infinite number of resources of everything that they are and do, rather than this one miserable thing that they can't do, which is never draw a picture before. It's very, very uninteresting thing to draw a picture. I mean, it doesn't really count big in the universe. As compared to leading an artistic life and doing everything thoughtfully, well, crafted, intensely, thorough, and so forth.
What they're doing, they have really learned it. And they haven't just done things because I told them to do it.
I'm an artist and I don't know what to make now. I'm not supposed to run out of ideas.
I've told some parents who have asked me, what on earth are you doing here? And I said, if I don't do anything else, the fact that a 6-year-old can have an idea.
I got an idea.
Go get what she or he needs to produce that idea. Set it up with no help from an adult. Do the idea. Put the stuff away and then think about what's been done. I said, even if that person never makes art again, that's a great skill. Beautiful craftsmanship comes from making something that's just deeply important to you. And I talk about that with the children. You know, if you're making this for your brother, who you just love so much, you would always want to do your very, very best. So I don't grade the children, but you wouldn't need to, because why would they do something badly for someone that they love?
The youngest child I've had is 4.5, and the oldest was almost 80. And what I've found is that there's a commonality of needs. It has less to do with the age than it does with the development of their ability to connect with creativity.
And I think that we are the acquisitive and avaricious people that we are, to the degree that we are, is because nothing tastes good enough, deep enough. And what an artist does, she has the very same capacity of imagination, but they take it seriously. And they build the features of what comes to them through the intuitive and through the imaginative into the weave of their life. Whereas the others let it go. So it's not that imagination comes to a few people, just like dreaming, it comes to everybody. But one person says, uh-huh, and the other person says, uh-uh.
I said, you haven't been making my art. Whose art do you make? We make our art. I said, you don't need me anymore. Everything we've done here is so that you can do it without me. Everything we do here is directly transportable to their personal life. And so I say, you're ready. Go for it.
You can swim in it.